morning and welcome to another MPW webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar will be A-levels versus foundation courses, a big match live. And today's session will be presented by James Barton, who is our Director of Recruitment at MPW London. Can I please ask that you keep your microphones mute throughout the presentation? There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions throughout the presentation. There is a chat box which you can use. We will then get back to you at the end with a question and answer session run by James and myself. You are also being recorded, so we will send you the recording of this later on. Thank you very much. And James, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Betty. Can you hear me before I start talking?
Yes, we can hear you. Well, I can hear you perfectly. And I can see you.
Ah, super. I can't see you and I can't see anyone else, but I can wave and hope that does the difference. Super. Right. Well, for my sort of hang on, let's get this working properly before we continue. For my astronaut / rock star moment, can I just say, hello world, can you hear me? I just want to say good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is indeed around the globe that you are currently listening in from. Welcome to today's webinar / let's call it masterclass if I want to be a bit more generous indeed to myself at this particular moment in time. Welcome to this masterclass, which hopefully, if you give me 45 minutes of your time now, I will try and tell you something that might be of interest to you. Now, I know full well that quite a lot of you are going to know quite a lot on this topic already, and I'm certainly not here to try and cover new ground or teach old dogs new tricks. What I am trying to do is actually to give you a little bit of a contextual summary, which hopefully will give you something instructive at the end. Now, for those of you who don't know me at all, I do like to do webinars, masterclasses in a slightly more interactive fashion, and therefore please feel free to play along with this particular webinar. And I also like to treat you a little bit more as though you are students. Obviously, we are talking to a more advanced bunch here, but I do like to pitch this at the student level because not only is it then applicable for students, it also helps instruct you a little bit more as to how you can guide your students moving forward. So, without further ado, can I introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Fight Night. Now, if you don't recognise the theme tune, which I'm sure you don't, this is the theme tune to Fight Night, and this is A-levels versus foundation courses. The big match up live, as we are now looking into here today. Now, this music is nicely played out. Look at this very tagline here: tailored, not uniform. And I really would like you to keep this in your mind throughout this entire presentation. Tailored, not uniform will be the most important thing, hopefully, that I tell you today, not only because it is the MPW tagline itself, but equally because it does rather hit at the very heart of this very point. I was actually waking up this morning and realizing the irony of coming to you live from my living room today. I don't know if any of you have ever figured this out, but MPW was in fact founded in the front room of Messrs. Mander, Portman and Woodward. They taught the very first classes for MPW back in 1973 from their front rooms. So there is a nice irony of us doing this webinar series from the front room of ours, because it shows how MPW has developed over time, but it's still a nice reversal back to the past as well. So tailored, not uniform. And simply, we're just trying to say that everyone is unique and everyone is individual. I actually thought about scrapping the presentation that I wrote here entirely and getting straight to the end and making that very point, because at the end of the day, it matters on the individual that you have in front of you. But I've decided to pitch this a little bit as though this is a heavyweight boxing match. So I'm going to take you through the next 40 minutes based upon the exercise that you need in order to get up to the big match, the pre-match commentary, the fight itself, and then a bit of post-match analysis within there. So for all you finely tuned athletes out there, I did warn you this was going to be a little bit interactive, so we're going for a warm-up. This is not a physical warm-up, but this is going to be a warm-up for your brain. And I do firmly believe personally in little psychology exercises to prove the points that we are trying to make. So the first thing I'd like you to do today to either wake up or wind down the grey matter, depending on the time of day that you are there, is to solve this puzzle for me. And now I will take a breather while for the next minute you tell me what is the next number in this sequence. And please bear in mind, you do not have to be the world's greatest mathematician in order to solve this. So there we are. Solve the puzzle. What is the next number in this sequence? 2 minutes on the clock. And while you do that, we have a microphone on. While you do that, let me tell you a little bit of a story, which is a story about me. When I was at school, I went to school and I did A-levels in ancient history, history, and English literature, because at the time, that is all that you could do. I mean, you had a choice of A-level subjects there, but there was no choice between A-level versus foundation. I chose those subjects because I wanted to go on and do law at university, but I did not. I took those subjects and realized that I had a love of ancient history and indeed, in fact, wanted to be Indiana Jones. So I went to university and I studied ancient history and archaeology and that sort of thing, because at the time, that was what I could do. But we didn't have the luxury of choice back then. What is so gratifying nowadays to develop in this education sector is to see the so many options that are available. Right, so if you're answering this question, did you get the answer? 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 12, 3 plus 6 is 21, and 8 plus 11 equals a question mark. I'm afraid I can't see the message tracking at this point in time, so hopefully there might be someone out there. So if you did, it might look a little bit like this. We would have 1 plus 4 equals 5. If you change the plus sign to a multiplication sign, you would end up getting this. The second answer to it is 2 plus 5 equals 12, which is 2 times 5 now, plus the 2. So you're now adding the number at the start of the sequence to give you the 12. The next part of it, 3 plus 6 is 21. Well, 3 times 6 is 18, plus the 3 at the very start again equals 21. And now 8 plus 11, 8 times 11, plus the 8 at the start gives you the 96. So for any of you who are answering, and now I can start seeing some of your answers, congratulations. If anyone answered 96, then indeed you have got an answer and a correct answer to this. But hang on, I hear you cry, because I can see others in this sequence as well who have come up with a different answer. Is there a second solution to this? Well, it does appear that there is. 1 plus 4 is 5, of course. 2 plus 5 equals 12, because 2 plus 5 is 7, plus the previous number in the sequence gives you 12. The same here, 3 plus 6 is 9, plus that 12 is 21. And now for the last part of the answer, 8 plus 11 is 19, plus that 21 gives you 40. So what do we have here? We have 96 from one corner and 40 from the other corner. So which is right? Arguably, both are. And that is the entire point of this entire exercise, is to show that you do get two different answers to a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean one is more right than the other one. Both are possible to achieve, but you can come up with two completely different answers depending on the person that you are and the way that your brain is working. In many ways, it's the same for A-levels versus foundation. The end goal doesn't always have to be achieved in the same way. So a very subtle little trick there, but something that proves the point. So now we've done our warm-up. You finely tuned athletes are onto the technical drills side of things now. Now, we all spend our life, I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing here and just talking about myself, but we all spend our life in pursuit of the perfect physique and building our health and our fitness. And so we all believe and buy into this fitness craze nowadays and the six-pack promise. If you've ever tried to go down the exercise-based route, generally speaking, you're always told that there is one way to achieve this particular goal, and that is by doing sit-ups. In doing sit-ups, you might have some sort of variations in there. There might be a variation on the sit-up, a crunch, a cross-crunch, but ultimately, it's the same sort of thing. Oh, hello, I have a microphone on. Is that all right? Super. So we all have slight variations on the sit-up itself, but you're told that sit-ups are the way of doing it. It might be a slightly different number that you have to achieve, but ultimately, if you do sit-ups, you will eventually end up looking like this chap here. But in the modern world, what we in fact have is those who believe it's not about sit-ups in order to achieve that physique. It is about the diet side of things. So they go more for the food and what foods you need to have in order to find that perfect fitness and that perfect physique. So on the one hand, you have the traditional approach, which works for some, but won't work for everyone. And on the other hand, you have the diet, which again works for some, but won't work for the more traditionalists out there. Again, just because we've been told there is one way of doing something doesn't mean that is the only way of doing something, but equally at the same time, it doesn't mean it's wrong to do it that way. Trying to make really superficial points here just to bring into focus on the difference between A-levels and foundation is there is no right to one approach. Sometimes it is about blending the two together. And this is where I really don't want it to be A-levels versus foundation in this entire presentation. What I want it to be is A-levels and foundation, because while they are different, they are not so far removed. And foundation courses do have elements of A-levels in there as well. So we do need to consider quite how far or not far apart they in fact are. So superficial exercise is over. Let's have a look at the contenders here. So we have in the blue corner, we have the A-levels, the gold standard in the English education system and the real heavyweight champion. So the vital stats to this is they're generally taken over 2, sometimes 1 year, but we will look at that. They give you access to all universities. They're a bit of a door wedge and they keep those routes and options available to you. You get more variety in A-levels than any other option because you have 43 of them to choose from. It is a more in-depth education. If anyone's ever compared IB, for example, to A-levels, you'll realize that IB and the American system does breadth in a way that A-levels do depth. They go far more into detail in a limited number of subjects. You have a strong background of teaching transferable skills to them, and the English system does love transferable skills, and they're more reflective of a student's broader interests. And here you go. Here are those 40 subjects, or 43 if you want to count them on that screen. If you were lucky enough to be on the presentation with Mark the other day, you'll know how to choose a combination, and it is about choosing an appropriate combination of subjects there. But they should be ones that reflect you, the individual, and subjects that you in fact enjoy. And that's the wonderful thing about the A-level system itself, is it does have so much variety and it really can reflect you as an individual student. It particularly works for those students still who might not 100% know what it is they want to do in the future. So therefore, having that choice and that menu and that variety to choose from can be a very rewarding and gratifying thing to have. And of course, you have the EPQ as well. Those familiar with IB, you have the extended essay. Well, the EPQ is the A-level equivalent. We did something on that the other day, so I won't dwell on it, but just to say that it can be a nice quirk to have a system like the EPQ to affect your university entrance, which doesn't exist in foundation land, but can be useful as a nice subtle way of helping with your university applications themselves on the A-level side. And then in the red corner, we have the real up-and-comers. It's actually quite unfair, I suppose, to call foundation courses up-and-comers because they've been around for quite some time, but they are strong in their own right, and they're this new pretender to the heavyweight crown. But it really is important to distinguish. We're not trying to say that A-levels are trying to trample on foundation, and we're not trying to say that foundation should indeed replace A-levels. We're just trying to say that they can go toe-to-toe and give people lots of variety and lots of options. Now, the vital stats for foundation courses, they are generally taken over a year, or 9 months in reality, I think is more accurate. Depending on the foundation course, though, they give access to a percentage of UK universities. And that's normally high, but it is certainly not all universities in the UK. And please note that particular point. That point also applies internationally as well. They're more specific, and students can then specialise in certain subjects and have a choice of modules within that specialisation, but it is not as broad as the A-level system itself. But what it does do, probably better than the A-level system, is to develop the English language level because it is specific to international students. They are designed for international students per se. And they're more reflective of students' specific vocational interests. So A-level is more specific of the broader interests of a student, and foundation courses, they're more reflective of a student's specific vocational interest. Vocational meaning with a job in mind in the future. And here are your options. Yes, we are MPW, so yes, we will consider MPW-based foundations as part of this masterclass, but it's not an exhaustive list. It's just to say there are other foundation courses and foundation course providers out there. So we have the IFP, which is run by the University of London, or accredited by the University of London, run by us. We have the NC UK, which is that Northern Consortium, which again, you had the other day as a presentation. Then we have the MPW University Foundation Programme, and then various universities themselves offer foundation programs too. So you have lots of option there as to where you might want to do it. Now, the weigh-in for a boxing match, if you're not familiar with how boxing actually works, at the weigh-in, we look at subtle technicalities and we use any disclaimers as well. So there's two quick disclaimers I want to put into this battle today. So in terms of let's make this a fair fight, A-level's done over 2 years. Some people might want to take that out of the equation now, because in trying to balance a fight, you're looking at students considering A-level versus foundation will generally be looking at 1-year courses. Now, that might sound like a more balanced argument if we were to consider 1-year A-levels versus foundation courses. But please note that the requirements for students are different and will place different demands on individuals. So what I really want to encourage you to do is to consider both 1- and 2-year A-levels versus foundation in order to keep this comparison academically responsible, because that's really what we want to be at the end of the day, is be responsible about the right route and not use this as a bums on seats exercise. The other quick one, I'm not going to dwell on this, but I will leave the slide there for you to see and give it to you afterwards, is the college-based foundation courses versus the university foundation courses. Sometimes in this life, it's about being careful what you wish for. And whilst it's a great idea to want to go to university straight away and get there as quick as possible, it might not always be the right route to do the foundation course there. What students need to consider is what they're actually getting from a university foundation course versus what they get in a college-based foundation environment. And please let them be really specific towards the amount of advice and support that they would be getting there, and whether that university is going to be preparing them well enough. It's not damning to universities at all to say this, but there is a tendency in the university marketplace for foundation courses to treat students as though they are the first year of undergraduate studies, which might sound like a wonderful thing to many students out there. However, there is a reason they are on the foundation course and not on the first year of an undergraduate course. Very simply, because they have not deemed to be ready for that particular program. Therefore, that first year, they're going to require more support in their foundation. If the university is not offering that and your student might need more support, then a college-based foundation does become a stronger option. So, disclaimers aside, let's get to the pre-match commentary here. Let's get through this particular bit. Right, so firstly, we have these basics that I really want you to keep in mind. Points 1 to 7. Number 1 will be the length of the course. How long is this course actually going to be? 2 years, 1 year, 9 months? What actually is going to be the right length? Length of course also means how many teaching hours are going to be given as part of this curriculum. A-levels are notorious for requiring a little bit more independence from students and therefore have slightly lower teaching hours so that students can do more independent study. That works for a lot of students, but some students like to be spoon-fed. If you like to be spoon-fed, then you're going to probably want more of a foundation approach, which has higher number of hours available. There is, of course, the cost. We live in a monetized world here. Cost is clearly an issue for a lot of people, but this is an investment on your future. 2 years are going to be more than one, simply. And 1 year A-levels are often more expensive than foundation courses, but try and always see this as an investment on the future as well. What is going to be right? And if possible, try and remove the money argument as best you possibly can and look more at what is actually educationally the right answer. Then we look at the curriculum. What's being taught? Does that course have enough of an interest for you? Or are you going to be studying things that don't actually apply or interest you at all? That can be a criticism of the A-level system, in that you are required to look at more subjects than just maybe the one it is that you want to focus on. If it is that one, look at the foundation course. But on the foundation course, are there enough modules within there that pique your interest as well? So really look at the curriculum in the same way that you would when you're choosing a university course. The location is what we just said, is university versus college in terms of what it is you're looking for. It's not necessarily the geographic location within the country, more which provider are you actually being given this education from. Then look at the assessment side of things. Now, look at this Venn diagram across the bottom: teaching, assessing and learning. Who's going to be rolling out this particular program? What are you going to be learning? And then what are you going to be assessed on? A-levels do rely on slightly more exams. They might have coursework attached to them. The university foundation courses might have fewer exams, but they might be slightly longer. So which benefits you, the student? And always bear in mind that the English system benefits those who know how to pass it, which is massively controversial, but absolutely true. So assessments, we can't rule out of this particular decision-making at this point. Then you've got recognition. Maybe recognition should be point one. Always start at the end. Always start at the end. Picture the end goal. Think, visualize where it is you want to be, and then work out which is the right route that gets you there. Is this foundation course, no matter how cheap it is or no matter how short it is it going to get you to where you want to go at the end of the day? So due diligence and research, absolutely key. And then, of course, language. Language is going to be one of the most important things in here, because you've got to cope. It's all very well doing the foundation course or the A-level, but if you don't have the language level required, is it really going to help you? And I will say this, and we'll probably just touch on it again in a second, but on the language side of things, foundation courses are set up to develop language in a better way and a more structured way than A-levels are themselves. A-levels deal with subject-specific language, but a more broader, a generalized language will be found on the foundation courses themselves. So I hope you're still with me, because we're nearly through the pre-match commentary, and then we can actually get to the big match itself. I just wanted to run through these. We'll call them pros and cons. Pros and cons of the A-level itself. The strength of the A-level system. The A-level system is internationally recognized. It's one of the strongest education grading systems worldwide, and it is recognized all over, except in France, really. I mean, the French don't necessarily like our education system, but apart from that, generally across the board, A-levels are strong as an option, and they will transfer overseas. Many colleges and schools, both in the UK and indeed abroad, offer the A-level courses. So you have plenty of choice as to where you might want to study these. You can join that A-level course at an age-appropriate time. So about the age of 15, 16, before you finish high school in your country, you can come across and still be in step with your peer group, studying alongside them, but this time doing A-levels instead of having to finish your high school qualification first. So you can come across early. They are standardly done over 2 years, and they're done over 2 years for a reason, because of the volume of work that you have to do. You can do them in 1 year. It's not appropriate for everyone. It does come with a health warning that you are combining 2 years into one, but ultimately it can be done. What I would always say is that for us and for any school, they will reserve the right to make the decision as to whether it is appropriate for a student to join a 1 year program, just based on the pure merit of how much there is to actually be studied within there. Even for a domestic student, I principally look after the UK market. Even for a domestic student, I would not be encouraging them to do 3 1-year programs, because it is just too much, even for a native speaker. 2 is maximum, 1 is preferable within there. And of course, you can't get to university with just 1 or 2 A-levels. So please bear that in mind, and we try and revert back to the 2-year argument. All universities, though, will accept A-levels. They know them, they understand them. You want to make this easy for universities, and particularly if you want to access that very top echelon of universities, the Oxfords, the Cambridges, the Imperials, the LSEs, and all those other names that are synonymous with outstanding global education. you're going to want to do A-levels, simply. You can get to university and to those universities without A-levels, but it is enormously harder to do so. And so if you have that top aspiration, we really want to be considering how we can put a student onto an A-level programme, whether it's 1 year or 2 years. For some courses in the UK, such as medicine, universities will only accept the A-level qualification. And I'm saying specific to the in the UK there, because there is a quirk in the NC UK Foundation that allows medicine, but that's for universities overseas as opposed to necessarily in the United Kingdom itself. And generally, you take 3 subjects, and there are many great different ones to choose from. So there are your strengths. Having said that, leading on from that point, universities don't like students to be too specific. They don't like too specific a combination, such as business, accounting, and economics. If you are taking a combination like business, accounting, and economics, then that might actually disadvantage your university application. And now all of a sudden, if that is your interest, maybe a foundation course is going to be more appropriate. In the A-level system, universities really do prefer it if you are more broad in your thinking. If you can come up with lots of transferable skills, such as problem solving or analytical or reasoning skills from a variety of different subjects, it shows you are a more rounded student and they are more interested in you coming out of an education system like A-levels that really champions those transferable skills. So we'd like to now introduce a geography or a sociology or something like that. That Russell Group bias that we've known about for years of preferred and non-preferred subjects, fortunately, has been eroded away over time, and universities are no longer absolutely rigid in this idea that you have to have a certain number of preferred and a certain number of non-preferred. So you can afford to be quite reflective of who you are and just pick the subjects you enjoy, because grades talk at the end of the day. An overseas student, though, drawback to the A-level system, will need good English language level, English language skills before starting them, even in subjects such as mathematics, because it is quite comprehensive. It is quite English-based in terms of the actual syllabuses themselves nowadays. The failure rate is indeed higher as well. As we were saying, it benefits those who know how to pass it. So the failure rate is a little bit higher than foundation courses, but the difference isn't that huge between the two. And there is no guaranteed progression. There are more opportunities if you miss your grade than there are with foundation courses, but there is no guaranteed progressions. There is a little gamble inherent, as there is with foundation, but there is a little gamble inherent with the A-level system too. Okay? 1 year A-levels, 1 year foundation courses, they're not the same. They are doing different things. They might be taken over the same period of time, but the actual demands and the workloads on students is demonstrably different. But if you get it right, lies, damn lies, and statistics, okay? If you get it right, it can really work for you. 75% of our body, and we just use us for as another example here, but 75% of our body progressed onto Russell Group universities who took the A-level system. Now, bear in mind, the 100% is also made up of students who want to go to art school and drama school and all those sorts of things. So a more accurate number for you is this: 89% of students who applied to Russell Group universities got into Russell Group universities as their first choice. So A-levels really can work for you if you are the type of student who is going to cope at that. The type of student who copes on an A-level course is someone who has a bit of a spark about them, who's a bit interactive, who has an element of independence about them, and is prepared to go into class, which is taught more like a seminar, and have a discussion. Rather than it being a chalk and talk exercise by any stretch of the imagination, you sit there and you have the discussion with your peer group and your teacher first, so we can learn more about what's going on in your head before you even put pen to paper. That's the type of student that we want on an A-level course, and that's the type of student who will be in this high percentage bracket. Foundation courses, and then I'll pause for breath in a moment. The pros and cons of foundations. You have your strengths, which are usually that these are specifically designed for overseas students. And if you are an overseas student, then this is going to be ideally pitched for you, and it's going to have more support in English language and in study skills. When we look at our specific foundation courses themselves, the only difference to that is the IFP, which doesn't actually do much with the English language skills at all. It actually requires you to have a higher level of English before you enter in. But the other foundation courses we run do give you more English language support. These are specific to college-based foundation programs. Students can often join with a lower level of English, therefore, depending on that route. The failure rate, as we just said, is lower. And therefore, students have a better chance in a way, but they do still need to get high marks on their foundation courses to access the higher levels of universities. It sounds like a very obvious point, and it is a very obvious point, but sometimes the very obvious points are missed. It might have a better chance, but you do still need to score very highly in order to get to where you want to go. Students who fail A-level actually can sometimes succeed and do very well at the foundation course. So if you start on a 2-year A-level route, sometimes if it's not working out, transferring across to foundation is an acceptable and quite an easy step across as well. So maybe start with the harder and then step across to something more manageable or more specific and tailored if that works more for you. Foundation courses, they are designed to go in 1 year, so students can complete within that 1 year time frame as well. And on the foundation course, students are generally specialising. So if you already know that you want to be a businessman and the business route on the foundation course offers you everything you want, then why take A-levels? Just take the foundation course if you know it's going to get you to the university that you want to go to. But the drawbacks, there is less choice. There is less choice on the types of foundation course and the number of providers for them in comparison to A-levels. The majority of foundation courses require students actually as well to have completed their high school in country first. So while with A-levels you can come early and we can teach you, we can integrate you into the English system and you can develop with English students, which is a massive benefit in itself, the foundation courses require you to have completed high school as well. I do just want to dwell on that point for a second. When you come across to study A-levels, you are studying with English students in a UK-based school. And that is a different way of teaching and a different way of learning than foundation courses, which are more international schools, therefore just with international students, and therefore a different way of teaching again. So your English language levels do naturally, almost by osmosis, develop in different rates as well. Foundations, they're not accepted by all universities. They give a slightly more limited range that you can apply to, but every provider is different. So you've just got to look at which provider is offering what and where it takes you. They don't bring students up to the same high level as the depth of those A-levels. They give you a surface level understanding. So that can have a drawback in itself, which is that when you get to university, that first year might be a little bit harder for you because you haven't got the same level of knowledge as an A-level student might have done. So consider how deep that knowledge needs to be before you start and whether you feel like you can benefit more from one versus the other. And because foundation courses, they're not nationally and internationally recognised, there is a variation on the standard of these courses. So do be careful when choosing. Courses differ a lot in terms of while the name can be the same, they differ a lot in terms of what you actually end up studying on those courses, how that achievement is assessed, how tough it is to get the high marks. So like considering a university for your undergraduate degree, do thorough diligence on this. Do your pros and cons list. But again, I mean, if it is something that works for you, then you have the results that prove it. And again, just to use stats to make a point for you, the IFP, the University of London Foundation Programme, 60% of people are going to that top echelon of universities there, okay, with distinctions and merits. If you want guaranteed progression, you go across to the NCUK, which offers you guaranteed progression from their consortium of universities. If you're on that foundation webinar the other day, you'll know a little bit more about this. But there is a good range of universities within there and some that sit nicely within that Russell group too. And the results from there can equally be quite favourable. 55% are reaching that very top level and 79% are reaching a generally high level, which still gives access to a top banding of university. And what you'll notice from all of these stats is they're broadly the same across the board. It's just trying to say that one doesn't necessarily mean it's better than the other. All of them offer you good opportunities, but you've got to work out who you are and which course is right for you, rather than which course we tell you is right for you. So which one? Maybe it boils down to this really, ambition versus age. The answer to this really does depend on your academic achievements. Okay, what it is you're actually looking to get from it, where you're looking to go in life, what your language skills are, what your ambitions are. Is it really going to get you to where you want to go? The higher these are, then it's more likely that you as a student or any of your students that you advise are going to be aiming for an A-level. However, foundation, it is widely accepted by universities, which is going to provide you with a good education. And it's a good choice if you are an overseas student, if you're a little bit older. And therefore you want to be sure of completing your university study or your pre-university study in 1 year. Age is an enormous factor in this decision-making process, because if you're over the age of 18, generally speaking, either one, you're not going to want to do 2 years of A-level, or two, we're not going to allow you to do 2 years worth of A-level, depending on various conditions within there. So age will play a big part in this as well. Okay, right. I think we need one more point, and then what we need is a bit of energy into this. Why choose colleges for either? I think this is probably the biggest point of the day as much as anything. Universities or colleges for university foundation programs and for A-levels do the same thing. Colleges are offering the same standard of education for both A-levels and foundation courses. You still have small class sizes. You still get that placement assistance. You still have excellent, outstanding pastoral support. You get more of a hands-on approach than you would do at university. So in many ways, does it matter which one you choose? Not wholly, because you're going to get that same student-based experience by going through a college-based A-level or foundation course route. So, right, we've done the pre-match analysis. We've gone through the endless hours, which you normally fast forward if you're on Sky Sports, and then you get up to the game itself. But before then, a bit of energy food, and for a very specific reason. Can you do this for me, please? Can you spot the difference? There are 6, and this is not a trick. And I'm afraid coffee is my energy food for the day. Okay. Hopefully, we've roughly reached a conclusion on at least some of these. Let me just show you what they are so we can get to it. These are your 6, okay? This is not a trick at all, by any stretch of imagination. There are 6. We have a missing button. We have a frown that's turned upside down into a smile. We have a missing fringe, a curl on the top of the head, some slightly narrower eyes, and a missing nose. So we have all of those, and I can see you're coming back to me as we go on the message thread, so thank you. There are your 6. Spot the difference. And that's what I want you to do with A-levels and foundations. Spot the difference. There are subtleties, but they are not so big that ultimately you would ever really notice the difference. It's all in the end game as much as anything. What I do at MPW, as well as delivering these slightly superficial webinars and masterclasses, is to interview an awful lot of students who come through our doors. And what I want to now teach you is how to be me. You might not want to be me, but for the next 10 minutes, please be me just to finish this all off. And I want to play a game with you. This game is called Play Your Path Right. Let me tell you how I do it. What do I look for as an interviewer? What I don't look for as an interviewer is enough people to get enough commission in order to buy a car like that. What I am trying to do is to look for the appropriate number of questions in order to buy the right product at the end of the day. We're all like this. That's why I put the car up there. If it's not a car that you do this for, think of another product. But think of something that you go out and buy, that you want to think of as many different questions as you can in order to answer first before you felt satisfied enough to buy that product. This works both for an interviewer and it works for a student as well. Now, as an interviewer, what I'm going to do is something very simple. I'm going to, after meeting and greeting, I'm going to go straight in at the very end, which is what I said I wanted to do at the start of this presentation. I'm going to go in at the end, and I'm going to ask you what your ambition is. Where do you want to go? Is there a career in mind already, or is there just a university aspiration? But I want to know a little bit more about that. Once I know a little bit more about that, I can then more appropriately tailor the advice that I'm going to give you towards what it is that you're actually telling me. So I know a little bit more about you, and now I'm going to track back, and I'm going to work out what exactly your academic level is up until this point. So I want to know a little bit more about you, your age, where you've come from, where you've studied up until this point, what you've studied up until this point, and what level you've currently reached. Now, once we've done all of that, we then have something which I feel is missed by an awful lot of people. And I don't say that lightly, actually. It's about what makes that student unique. What actually makes them, what represents them as the person, because what represents them as the person and makes them unique is the sell as to whether A-levels is right or foundation is right, because different attributes and different skills for each individual will matter more to A-levels versus foundation. And all the while you're doing this, you're going to be assessing the English language level of the individual, because as we said before, that's one of those 7 basics that we need to understand as to whether the student is going to cope on that course. Let me give you the example. You've come in, you want to do mechanical engineering. So we've had a bit more of a chat about mechanical engineering. I want to have a conversation with you about all the different routes of engineering available, whether a more general engineering course is possibly right for you, but then to talk about mechanical and to talk about work experience and to layer it up in terms of the things that you're going to require to have it. Once I know that you want to do mechanical engineering, I will then know what you need before that. And usually that's going to be maths and physics at A-level. If there is any other type of engineering in there, you might require chemistry as well. Or indeed, where there are engineering routes on the foundation courses. So I don't currently know whether it's going to be A-level or foundation, so I need to look a little bit more into it. I need to understand more about the academic background of the student. Do you have what is required to cope at A-level, or to go onto that foundation course, which has a slightly lower entry requirement to get onto that itself? Then once I know that, I can then consider what's making you unique, whether you have the attributes, whether you're going to be more interactive and therefore you're going to be a perfect candidate for A-levels, or whether you're a bit more shy, hesitant, and just want me to write the answers to that mathematical puzzle up on my board, in which case I'm probably going to put you onto the foundation route. But again, I'm going to be assessing your English language level. If you are below 6.5, I'm definitely not going to be putting you onto a 1-year A-level course. If you are below 6, I'm not going to be putting you onto a 2-year A-level course. And therefore, I really just need to find out what exactly it is that you are able to do. I hope that makes sense, because this is the game. This is the match that I now want you to play with me. These are your rules. 1 to 8. I want you to consider the age. You are me. You are the interviewer. I want you to consider the age. I want you to consider where this student has come from. I want you to consider the academic history and the score. Take a screenshot of this just so that you've got it to hand, maybe on your phone or something. Consider the previous education. Consider what else is important to that student, the English language level, what makes them unique, and what they want to study in the future. That is what you have to do now as the interviewer, as your MPW interviewer. On the left-hand side, I put a scoring system because on 2 of the points on each of these cards, we use a scoring system. The scoring system works like this. For the academics part, 1 to 4 makes you a weak student. 5 to 6 would make you an average academic student. 7 to 8 would make you a good student. And 8 to 10 would make you an exceptional, outstanding academic prospect. On the extracurricular side, 1 to 4, not important to a student. So it's not really that important that they have extracurricular activities or they haven't engaged in them. 5 to 6, reasonably important. 7 to 8, important. And 8 to 10, be all and end all, very important. And most likely is going to be heading down the US line at some point. So these are your scoring systems and these are your rules. And I'll play the first one with you in just a moment. This as well, please take as a screenshot so you have this alongside. I've done you a comparison chart between A-levels and foundation courses, so now we can help appropriately match up the right student. Key points: A-levels, more variety. You need a good to high academic level. IELTS are going to have to be 6.5, those 6.5 plus if you want to do well or if you want to access onto a 1-year A-level course. It's definitely for those who want to do medicine because you don't really have a choice, including dentistry and veterinary. You get up to 20 hours a week worth of personalised study within there. So it's more for proactive learners, and you get access to more of the school experience because it's done over a longer period of time. Then you can see your foundation course table here. Hours per week, that's a key consideration for you in terms of your student to actually have a look at as well. The cost is equally going to be something within there too, and the length of the program. Okay. And at the bottom, the pathways will show you what's available to each student at each centre. So this is your comparison chart. You need one screenshot to go over for your scoring system, and you need one screenshot for the comparison chart. And now we play the game. We have 5 of these cards. Number 1 we'll do together, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 you will do with me. Okay, so number 1, we have this student. We have Kata. She's age 17 and she's from Japan. She has an academic history of 6 out of 10, extracurricular 3 out of 10, and her English language level currently sits at 5.5. Her characteristics, she's hardworking, she's shy, and she's focused, and her ambition in the future is to go to do biomedical science. So the question is, which course is right for Kata? Bear in mind, if we go back to this, she has an average 6 out of 10 for academics, so she's an average student, and 3 out of 10 on extracurricular, so it's not really that important to Kata. Which course do we think Kata would be most suitable for? Now, this being an example, let me give you the answer, and then you can do the other ones. Although I do think I have someone already. Thank you, Marina. The answer you come up with is foundation course, NC UK, and yes, indeed, absolutely, it would be the NC UK. It's definitely a foundation course. The IELTS level is too low to go on to an A-level course. It needs developing, so we are already in foundation territory. What she wants to do in the future is definitely going to be an NC UK course, and her characteristics push her more onto that line than they would do in the far more fast-paced and interactive form of A-levels. So number 2, we have Luke. Luke, 16 years old, he's British. His academic history is 8 out of 10. He's previously studied at Millfield School, which is obviously an independent boarding school within the United Kingdom. Extracurricular, 7 out of 10, which is possibly even a little low for Millfield. He's native English, his characteristics, he's driven, he's outgoing, and his degree choice is medicine. Hopefully nice and simple. And yes, the comments coming through nice and quickly here. He's an A-level candidate, very simply again, because his academics are absolutely in the right place. He's too young, just to point this out to you though, he is too young to go onto a 1-year course. Luke is definitely a 2-year A-level student. We would never accelerate anyone onto a 1-year course. We should always be doing everything age appropriate. 18 is generally the age we want people to be before doing 1-year courses, though we do look at exceptions at 17. And of course, medicine. Olga, 18, Russian, 8 out of 10 for her academics. Extracurricular, only 2 out of 10. Her English language level, IELTS 7.0. She's polite, she's independent, she's analytical, and she wants to study finance. Please, scores on the doors. What's your answer? Foundation, University of London Foundation. Do I have any other advances on that? No, so we're all going for University of London Foundation. That's fascinating, that one. I mean, yes, indeed. The University of Foundation course does offer a more finance-based option. There's some people coming in now with NC UK as well. However, let me introduce a different thought to you. Why do you think Olga is not going to be appropriate for 1-year A-level courses? Someone's come to me with A-levels, and thank you for doing that. Why do you think she is not appropriate? Because this is one of those times where if we go back to those nice and superficial exercises we did at the start, you'll find that there isn't such a difference between the 2 courses, and the 2 routes can be suitable for the same person. So Olga, she is 18 years old. Her age, therefore, age you might see as a factor for her not doing 1-year A-levels, but it is also a factor for her doing A-levels. The fact that she's on IELTS 7.0, someone's volunteered there that 7.5 would be more appropriate. Arguably, 7.5 would be more appropriate because your English language level is higher. That said, at the same time, 7.0 is strong enough for us to consider a student in that bracket. Personally, if I was interviewing this student, I would be putting her either onto a 1-year course or onto a foundation route. I probably wouldn't put her down the 2-year route because there is no need for her. She's not at that level. Her academics are already strong enough. She is independent. She is analytical. That is why I'm swaying to A-level. But the foundation course might give her everything she wants. The real determining factor to the answer to this question is, where does Olga want to be in the future? Is it the LSE? Is it somewhere within London? Is it outside of London? Is that foundation course going to take her there? Yes or no? If the answer to that is no, then we really do want A-level, because Olga should have the opportunities available to her. Two more quick ones. We have Chen now. Chen's 17, he's Chinese, his academics are 4 out of 10, his extracurricular is 3 out of 10. Chen's quite a laid-back guy. He's quite lacking the academic independence here. His English language level is only at a 5.5, and he wants to do business and management. Do we have any suggestions as to where, as an interviewer, you would be placing Chen? Chen should do A-level. Yeah, in many ways, we have the UFP and we have the NCUK, absolutely. So the one thing we can definitely rule out from the start is we're never going to be putting Chen onto an IFP course because its English language level is too low. We can also rule out the 1-year A-level course, 1, because he's slightly too young, and 2, because his English is definitely not up to it. Chen, therefore, has a couple of routes left available to him. We could consider Chen to do a 2-year course, but his English is still a little bit weak to go onto a 2-year A-level program. We really do want him to have raised that to a 6.0 in order to be able to cope even on a 2-year course. So if he can develop in time, we might consider him to do a 2-year course. Otherwise, we have 2 distinct routes. We have the NCUK, which will consider someone at 5.5, and we have the University Foundation program that considers them at 5.0. Considering that Chen's English is not terrific and he's quite laid back, I might suggest that the MPW University Foundation program is better, because the first term is actually spent specifically on English language development and study skills development as well. So we can actually bring a little bit more academics to Chen before he actually even starts on the business stream itself. Okay? And that would still allow him off to do business and management at university. And then last but not least, we have Alice. Okay, Alice, she's 17, she's Brazilian. She actually studied in the UK until she was in year 9. Then she went back to Brazil, she studied there. Academics, again, strong, 8 out of 10. Extracurricular, 7 out of 10. She's obviously come from a very sporting background. Her English is fluent because she's been in England for so long. She's adaptable, she's analytical, and she wants to do international relations. Straight off the bat there, we have some people saying the 1-year A-level, the 1-year A-level, the 1-year A-level. Again, I would say possibly. She's 17, so she's fractionally on the young side, so it depends on where in the range she actually is for her age. But 1-year A-level might be appropriate for her. The other route she definitely has available is the University of London Foundation programme, which has itself specific international relations modules, politics, international relations within there, a bit of history, of course. So it might be more appropriate for her to do that. Again, we're looking at the end game. Where does she want to go? Is it going to be enough just to do the IFP in order to go there? Or the 1-year A-levels is just going to leave a nice door wedge in there. What I always find as an interviewer, whenever anyone says international relations to me, is you want to pull apart what they actually mean by international relations. And that's why I really prefer people doing international relations to gravitate probably more towards the A-level, because then we can actually work out whether it is international relations or whether it's politics or whether it's sociology, or actually are they a secret geographer within there, because it can mean so many different things to so many different people. But she would have A-level or the International Foundation program as a route. The key for us really is that from the outset, you guide, you advise students, you give them the options as to what is available, and then you let us as interviewers try and actually guide them onto the right route in coordination and communication with yourselves, but then we can actually pull them apart, giving it from a couple of options rather than many, many different options on the table. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea as to how to be an interviewer. And so now we just tie it all together in our post-match analysis, and then you can grill me to your heart's content. Tailored, not uniform. Look at the individual. Look at who your student is. Then you can guide them properly from there. Start at the end. Always start with the end goals. And once you know them, you can then present the right options. One size is not going to fit all, but that's great. That's wonderful. It's great that nowadays we have A-levels and foundations, okay? Both do the right thing, but they do the right thing for different students. So it's not A-level versus foundations. This should never have been a boxing grudge match. This should be A-levels and foundations. They are friends, they are holding hands, they are complementing each other. And if you do them in a college-based environment, you're going to get the same level of support, expertise, and experience than you would do otherwise. So broadly speaking, in a nutshell, that's it. You've had presentations recently on the specifics of these foundations. You've had a presentation the other day about A-levels. And now hopefully you've had a bit of a summary as to how we would start looking at whether we guide someone onto A-levels or foundation courses. That is the end of the actual talking side of things. And now I will sit and answer any questions that you may have. Betty.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, James. So at the moment, we don't seem to have any questions, so I will just wait. See if anybody does.
Well, that either means one of two things. Either it was so comprehensive that everyone got all the information they wanted, or ultimately I said so many controversial things that everyone disagrees with them.
Surely not, James.
Sure.
Just whilst we're waiting for some questions to come through, thank you everybody for joining today's session. It was very informative for me as well, and very exciting. So thank you for that, James. Just wanted to let you know that our next webinar is next Tuesday, the 5th of May, at 9:30, and it will be a law workshop, which will be delivered by our colleague in MPW London, Desi, and that's Tuesday the 5th at 9:30. The information for May webinars will be going out shortly, but if you do have any questions, please do email international@mpw.ac.uk. So we do have a question for you, James. So Race Yasmin, I am 18 years old and I want to do medicine, so I'm thinking about the A-level. Is that the best choice to take?
Yes, it is. If you're looking down the medical baseline, it is always going to be more preferable that you take A-levels from the outset. The question is really whether we get you doing them over 2 years or whether we get you doing them over 1 year, because there's an awful lot that goes into medicine, not only just the academics themselves. So it's about time as much as anything else. You do have an option on the NC UK Foundation to enter into medical school as well, but that is only to the order of 3 universities. If you take A-levels, then all 36 of them will be available to you in the UK. The conversation we'd rather have at this point will be, is it 2 years? Is it 1 year? What do you already have already? And then go from there. But yes, A-levels is better for you in that respect.
Great, thank you. And I think that's quite consistent with the webinars we had last week about the foundation as well. So Perry says, for university entry requirements, foundation is less risk than A-level for average students.
So for university entry requirements, foundation is less risk than A-levels?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, in a way, although that's a very difficult one to actually say yes or no to, because ultimately if you don't reach your grades in the A-level, then you still have plenty of options available to you. They're slightly more flexible in terms of how they help you the other side. If you don't reach your requirements on the foundation programs, then those options are much fewer. So while it's got a lower failure rate, the foundation courses, actually, if you do fall into the higher failure rate on the A-level side of things, there are more opportunities available to you. So the argument flips a little bit both ways, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. We have another question. Is it possible to get into foundation program with 7 GCSEs and an ICE diploma without high school diploma? I can answer that one, James.
Sure.
For the foundation. So GCSEs are the requirements for getting into foundation. It really depends which foundation program you want to join. And in terms of not having a high school diploma, that shouldn't be an issue if you've got your GCSEs. However, we would need to check with the university that you are aspiring to join as to whether they would accept your current background. So it's always really looking at the university and the degree that you want to join. That's how the entry requirements are really judged with us. Okay. Alyssa says, would you recommend the UOL IFP for progression to LSE? I am aware that LSE requires UGAA for foundation courses. Do you think the fact that applying to LSE requires the student sit for UGAA will make that a disadvantage for the student?
Hi, Alyssa. It's which way round is this better? Would I recommend the UOL for that? I wouldn't not recommend the UOL for that. I would probably start from the perspective of saying that it gives you lots of possibilities. It's still going to require you to get as high as you possibly can. Bear in mind, whenever you apply to any top university, I think you've already got the point here, but that when you apply for a top university, you're just going to have to get the top grades that you possibly can within whatever course you are currently studying at that point. So you still have an option, you still have the opportunity to get to where you want to go. Does that opportunity get less or get more? I suppose if you take the A-level side of things, again, the answer to that would be not necessarily. Actually, it's probably going to be the same for both in many respects. There, the one thing that the University of London, specific to the LSE, do like is the A-level system, though, because it does give them the opportunity to say to students, we like people with a bit of variety and a bit of difference in their program. We don't just like you to be a one-trick pony where you just have the same subjects that you are offering us. So they do quite like variety in the A-level program itself. So that can often be quite an advantage as well, or a good reason to take the A-level versus the UOL for entrance into the LSE. But it doesn't mean that in taking the UOL you won't get into the LSE. It just means you've already got the point, you get the top grades, and then you're in with a competitive chance. Bessie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think it's a question that we do always get asked, and I think we have to look at the student's background. And so kind of looking at what is the student coming with, because actually UGAA can be seen as a barrier. So whereas with an A-level, it's the 3 grades and that's it, there are no additional exams. But with the foundation program, the UGAA is an exam. So even if the student passes the 4 modules on the LSE, the University of London Foundation, they still have to pass the UGAA as well. So there's no getting around that. So this is why we obviously, going back to the interview process that James was talking about, this is why we do have to really manage students' expectations around the IFP, especially if the main aim is the LSE. And actually, maybe a 1-year A-level route may be a alternative for that as well.
Absolutely. And just developing that point at the very end and saying it is worth noting that nothing's ever a direct leader on. Just because it carries the name of the university as a whole doesn't mean it's a direct leader into that particular university later. So just important to draw the distinction.
And just Rebecca has asked what the UGAA is. And so the UGAA is LSE's non-standard entry examination. So you can actually find UGAA papers on the LSE website. So basically the non-standard student really means any mature students that are applying to LSE degrees and students that haven't completed the A-level or IB route. Would normally be asked to complete the UGAA. Again, it varies on the degree they're applying for at LSE. But with our IFP students, if LSE is interested in them, they will have to sit the UGAA exam. There's no escaping that. Richard Morgan asks, are you likely to produce an online foundation option for September? Some parents may be reticent about sending children abroad.
Richard, what I would say is that all options and all conversations are ongoing in this fast-paced world at this moment in time. We are considering it. We have been very lucky that all of our teaching rollout is online and working exceptionally well at this moment in time. So there's no reason why we're not considering this, but we are just waiting to see exactly how everything settles down. And then we will give more information as to what we roll out from there. But if we did do it, what I can say is that we are in a position to be able to roll out incredibly effective online tuition. And in fact, we put together a bit of a video to show people how that online tuition is working at the moment, which if you haven't seen, we'll be happy to share the link with you as well.
Yes, great, thank you. And there will be more information going out over the next few days regarding September and MPW's current position as well. I'm getting a lot of questions here asking for the presentation. So you will receive the presentation and a copy of this recording today. So we will be sending it to you. So there are no issues there. Please do keep checking the website as well, as the May webinar sessions will also be on there, and we will send you further information on that as well. Okay, that seems to be the end of our questions.
Super. Well,
James, I'll leave you to closing remarks.
Yeah, just very simply say, one, thank you all for tuning in and giving me up your time today, and two, and probably more importantly, stay safe, stay well. I hope wherever you are that you are keeping on going and your spirits are high, and we're thinking of you over here. So please do continue to be with us for the rest of the webinar series that we are running, and the international team are doing a phenomenal job at rolling out. Absolutely. Thank you so much, James, and stay safe, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you in person very, very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. Bye-bye.